Today we're building Odysseus in Dungeons & Dragons. And if Christopher Nolan's new film convinced you that Odysseus can be the most dangerous person in any room he walks into, the D&D mechanics are going to make a very strong case that he's right. This build personifies the leadership, archery, and tactical brilliance wrapped into one character. And yes, we made sure he has the ability to actually use that bow. Starting with the species, Odysseus is a human, so let's stick with that. This gets us an extra skill, so grab religion. It's a big part of the Odyssey, and for an origin feat that you automatically get from being a human, grab tough. It gives you an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build, and Odysseus has to survive a hell of a lot, including essentially hell itself. Then when it comes to a background, we could go with something a bit more of a leader since he is the king of Ithaca, but we're going to go with sailor because that's such a major part of his character. This gives us skill proficiencies in acrobatics, but it does give us one more skill proficiency. However, we're going to overwrite that and go with persuasion. We also get tool proficiencies with navigator's tools, and for an origin feat, this grants us Tavern Brawler. So you have enhanced unarmed strikes, making your unarmed strikes deal 1d4 plus your strength modifier. You get damage rerolls, so whenever you roll a damage die for your unarmed strike, you can reroll any ones that you get for a new roll, and you get improvised weaponry, so you have proficiency with improvised weapons. Then the last feature this origin feat gives you is push. So when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, as part of the attack action on your turn, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away from you. You can use this benefit only once per turn. Then when it comes to a class, I was slightly torn and very tempted to go with Ranger, capitalizing on both wisdom of a very wise leader and the dexterity and bow usage that Odysseus would have. I think I need to focus more on the battle tactics and try to not use much magic, so we're going to go with a fighter. This will give us proficiency with all weapons, all armor, and we get 2 skills. So we're going to grab perception and athletics. When it comes to a fighting style, his bow is pretty iconic, so let's go with archery. This gives us a +2 bonus to our accuracy with a bow. Also at first level of fighter, we get second wind. So as a bonus action, you can regain a number of hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. You can use this twice, regaining all uses on a long rest and 1 use on a short rest. And when you reach certain levels in fighter, you get more uses of second wind. Then the last thing you get at first level of fighter is weapon masteries. You get 3 of them. So we're going to focus on the bow first, which you could probably argue is a long bow, but I think it's more of a short bow, so we're going to go with that. This gives us the weapon mastery feature, Vex. So when you hit a creature with a short bow and deal damage to that creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. Next, we're going to focus on his sword, which he uses pretty often too. So we're going to go with a short sword. This also gives us the Vex weapon mastery property. Then lastly, we do occasionally see him use a spear. So with a spear, you get the weapon mastery feature, Sap. So if you hit a creature with a spear, the target has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. Then getting it to second level of fighter, you get Action Surge. So on your turn, you can take 1 additional action as long as it's not a magic action. You can only use this once per short or long rest, but at level 17 of fighter, you can use it twice. Second level of fighter also gives you tactical mind, so you have a mind for tactics on and off the battlefield, which seems pretty spot on for Odysseus. So when you fail an ability check, you can expend a use of your second wind to push yourself towards success. Rather than regaining hit points, you roll a d10 and add that number to the ability check, possibly turning it into a success. But if you still fail, then the second wind isn't used. Then at third level of fighter, you get to choose a fighter subclass. And Odysseus is probably one of the most tactical fighters you can possibly find. So we want to focus in on that by choosing Battle Master. This gives you the feature Combat Superiority, which gives you 3 maneuvers. You learn 2 additional maneuvers when you get to fighter levels 7, 10, and 15. You can use maneuvers with superiority dice. You have 4 superiority die, which are D8s, and you can regain those superiority die when you finish a short or long rest. You gain additional die when you get to fighter level 7 and 15. And so the maneuvers we're going to choose is going to be Riposte. So if a creature misses you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to expend 1 superiority die to make a melee attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike against the creature. If If you hit, add the superiority die to the damage. This is a great way to make use of your reaction whenever you can. Then you need to have a bit more battlefield control because that's absolutely key in Dungeons & Dragons. So grab pushing attack. When you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon or unarmed strike, you can expend a superiority die to push the target back, as long as it's large or smaller. If it fails on a saving throw, it's pushed 15 feet away. And you can add the superiority die to the damage. Then finally, you are a very wise leader. So grab Commander's Strike. So you can replace one of your attacks with one of your companion's attacks, adding your superiority die to the damage of whatever they do. That creature gets to immediately use its reaction to make that attack. And if you're really smart, use this on a rogue, because rogues can do sneak attacks on your turn as well as their turn, because it's only once per turn, not once per round. 4th level fighter will give us another weapon mastery, so grab a dagger just so you have one handy. This gives you the weapon mastery Nick, so if you try and do an offhand attack with a dagger as your bonus action, you can make it part of your main attack action instead, freeing up your bonus action for other things. Then at 4th level fighter, you get an ability score improvement, and you're really good with that bow. So let's take Sharpshooter. This boosts your dexterity by 1 point. So here's our starting ability scores, and then we're throwing that 1 point into dex. Then this feat also gives you bypass cover, so your ranged attacks with weapons ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. It also gives you firing in melee, so being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with ranged weapons. And finally, you get long shots, so attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage either. 5th level fighter gives us extra attack, so you can attack twice instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn, and at 5th level you get tactical shift. So whenever you activate your second wind with a bonus action, you can also move up to half your speed without provoking an opportunity attack. Then at 6th level, we also get an ability score improvement. So let's focus in on the leadership abilities by taking the feat Inspiring Leader. This will allow us to boost up our wisdom by 1 point. And we get the feature Bolstering Performance. So when you finish a short or long rest, you can give an inspiring performance, which can be a speech, song, or dance. And considering there are songs and tales told of you, this seems pretty fitting. And up to 6 allies within 30 feet of yourself, when they witness this performance, get to gain temporary hit points equal to your character level, plus the modifier that you increased with this feat. Then at 7th level of fighter, you get Know Your Enemy, thanks to being a battle master. So as a bonus action, you can discern the strengths and weaknesses of a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You know its immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities, but you can only use this feature once per long rest, or you can actually expend a superiority die to be able to use it again. And at 7th level, you get to choose 2 more maneuvers. For a more tactical attack, grab Disarming Attack. So a target has to make a strength save, or they drop one object that they're holding, possibly disarming them. But this also boosts up your damage a bit. Then another solid one for battlefield control is Trip Attack. So when you hit with a weapon or an unarmed strike, you can expend a superiority die and add it to the damage as usual. If the target is large or smaller, it must succeed on a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. 8th level fighter gives us another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and round out our dexterity and wisdom. 9th level gives us tactical master. So any weapon that you know the weapon mastery property for, you can now replace it with push, sap, or slow. Also at 9th level, you get indomitable. So if you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. You must use the new roll, and you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. But you can use this feature twice per long rest at 13th level and 3 times at 17th level. 10th level, being a battle master, gives you improved combat superiority. So your superiority die boosts to a D10, and you can learn 2 more maneuvers. So grab Rally. This allows you to boost a creature with some temp HP for an amount equal to whatever you roll on your superiority die plus half your fighter level. And then we'll also grab Ambush. You're kind of known for hiding inside of a giant wooden horse statue, and having the ambush maneuver is kind of fitting for that. So when you make a stealth check or an initiative roll, you can expend 1 superiority die and add it to whatever you roll. 11th level of fighter gives you 2 extra attacks, so now you can attack 3 times per attack action. 12th level will give us another ability score improvement, so go ahead and throw 2 more points into dexterity, finally maxing it out. 13th level gives you studied attacks, so you learn while fighting. If you make an attack roll against a creature and you miss, you have advantage on your next attack roll. So that means if you're relying mostly on your short bow and short sword, If you miss with an attack, you have advantage on your next attack. If you hit with an attack, thanks to Vex, you also have advantage on your next attack. 14th level of Fighter gives us another ability score improvement. So let's improve our leadership by boosting our wisdom. 15th level of being a battle master gives us Relentless. So once per turn, when you use a maneuver, you can roll 1d8 and use the number rolled instead of expending a superiority die. Basically, you get one free maneuver per turn. And speaking of those, you get 2 more at this level. And anybody that plays D&D on any sort of battle map knows that getting in the right position is kind of crucial. So grab the maneuvering attack. When you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can expend a superiority die to maneuver one of your comrades into another position. Add the superiority die to the attack's damage roll and choose a willing creature who can see or hear you. That creature uses its reaction to move up to half its speed without provoking opportunity attacks from the target of your attack. Then purely focus on the leadership, at least for a little bit, and grab Commanding Presence. This maneuver allows you to use a superiority die that you can add to an intimidation, performance, or persuasion check. Then at 16th level of Fighter, you get another ability score improvement. Throughout the majority of the film and a good chunk of history, you're usually wearing some sort of breastplate, which is more medium armor. So let's grab Medium Armor Master. First, this allows us to get an ability score increase. We can boost up our strength or dex, but our dex is already maxed out. So let's just throw 1 point into strength. Then it gives us Dexterous Wearer. So while you're wearing medium armor, you can add 3 rather than 2 to your armor class, as long as your dexterity score is 16 or higher, which ours is. Then at 18th level of Fighter, you get Ultimate Combat Superiority, thanks to being a Battle Master. So your superiority die becomes a D12. And then at 19th level of Fighter, you can choose an epic boon. And considering the final battle against all the suitors, I think one of the best feats that's going to fit the character is the boon of Desperate Resilience. This allows us to boost our strength by 1 more point, at least giving us an even score. But it also makes it so while you're bloodied, you have resistance to every type of damage except for force damage. And then finally, at 20th level of Fighter, you get 3 extra attacks. So you can now attack 4 times instead of once whenever you take the attack action on your turn. I was just really into the movie after I saw it, so I couldn't help but making Odysseus in D&D. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the comments and description down below. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to play as Odysseus from the Odyssey in Dungeons & Dragons.